Hello again, I'm Carol Off.
And I'm Barbara Budd. This is As It Happens, Part 2. Coming up,
an RCMP officer who testifies at the trial of two former Croatian generals.
And after 7 months of wondering, it's no longer antlers away for a relieved artist in the Yukon.
Those stories and more are still to come on As It Happens.
Shane Wilson spent years carving the elaborately detailed sculpture of a moose skull and antlers that he called Yukon Seasons. He then presented the artwork as a gift to the city of Whitehorse, the community that had nurtured him as an artist. But apparently someone wanted to nurture the sculpture itself, in private, because last September it was stolen in the dead of night from its home in the Canada Games Centre. Shane Wilson thought he'd never see Yukon Seasons again. But today, the stolen antlers are back where they belong. We reached Mr. Wilson at his home in Nanaimo, BC.
Mr. Wilson, how did it feel when you found out that the RCMP had recovered your sculpture?
I was totally thrilled. It was an amazing, out-of-the-blue kind of call. I hadn't expected that it would ever be found. And so when Laurel Perry, who's the head of the Yukon Government Arts Branch, called to let me know that it was found, I was just flabbergasted, stunned, but thrilled, you know?
Now, they say that the Whitehorse detachment of the RCMP said that they, a few days ago, had been brought in by an anonymous person, someone who was not involved with the theft. What do you know anything more than that?
That's all I know. Yeah, and I'm completely grateful to whoever the anonymous person is, because without them, it would still be missing.
But the thief is still at large then? Well,
I don't know. I assume that that's the case, since nothing further has been forthcoming in the news, and that's all I've heard.
And do you know if the sculpture is intact? Was it damaged at all?
Well, from what I understand, what Laurel says, the sculpture, at the time it was stolen, the thieves, when they were breaking it out of the display case, broke off one of the tines, which are the sort of pointy bits on the moose antler, and it was left behind. And as far as Laurel can see, that's all the damage that's been done. Other than that, it's intact. She said it seems to be a little bit of a darker color, which means that maybe it was in a house where there was wood smoke or cigarette smoke, or maybe in a shed somewhere. I don't know.
Now, it was the only thing that was stolen that day. Is that correct?
That's what I understand, yeah.
And there were stealable things, I guess, that the thief or thieves could have walked away with.
There was tons of stealable things. Cash machines, art on the walls, God knows what else in the weight rooms and things like that, depending on what you wanted. I mean, the place was wide open.
Do you think that it was targeted, that sculpture?
Well, that's what they say. I mean, unless I was able to speak with the thief myself, I wouldn't really know. But the assumption is that it was a highly targeted theft. They understood that the window of opportunity was there, and they took it.
I guess that's kind of flattering in a way.
Yes. As I said at the time, the sense of loss was tremendous, but it was kind of a backhanded compliment.
What was your reaction when you had learned that it was stolen?
Well, I was devastated. I mean, as anyone would be. In order to help your listeners understand, it was a carved moose antler and skull set, which, I mean, if you know anything about moose, they're the largest sort of land animal in the Yukon. They're huge. And the carving of it took about 3 years of my life. So the intention was to have it displayed in perpetuity in the Yukon, and that hope was dashed when the thief took off with it. So, anyone working on something for 3 years would be devastated if it was lost, I'm sure.
The piece is called Yukon Seasons, right?
Yes.
Well, describe what the imagery that's carved into it. I've seen it on the internet. It's just quite beautiful.
Well, thank you. In order to understand, I guess it's about 4 feet wide by 4 feet high by 2 feet deep. And it's a full moose antler and skull combination. In taxidermical sort of terms, it's called a European mount, in other words. So the skull and the antlers are all together. And the entire piece is carved with the different seasons of the Yukon represented by various animals and imagery and so on.
You're living in Nanaimo now, you say?
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to go up and see Yukon Seasons, see how it, see the sculpture and see what would happen to it?
Well, I'd love to at some point. I think I'm going to go back this summer, and I'll probably stop off and see it then.
And are you waiting to hear news about who stole it, or do you care?
Well, I'm just thrilled that it's back. I mean, as an artist, when you create something, you put everything into it. You put yourself into it. And so really it's like a part of me has come back, I feel whole again. And that for me is the prize. The fact that it's there for people in the Yukon and others who visit the Yukon to see, hopefully in perpetuity.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, it is. It's great news.
Thanks for telling us about the sculpture.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate your interest.
Bye, Shane.
Okay, bye now.
Shane Wilson is a sculptor, and we reached him at his home in Nanaimo, BC.